It's preview season here on the channel, and today it is all about South Carolina Gamecocks. What are they going to be in 2025? Are they truly a playoff contender? Maybe they're just another team in this stacked SEC conference. I don't know why I said SEC conference. SEC, the C is conference, Southeastern conference, whatever. Point remains that today is all about South Carolina and what they can be in 2025. So if you're new around here, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of the video at the end. Appreciate y'all. We have blown the goals out of the water. I mean, we're searching for 125 right now. We're at 115 as of me recording this. I appreciate y'all for the recent love on all the videos, the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. It's been awesome, and I'm going to lead this video off a little bit differently. I normally just kind of cut the BS and get straight into it, okay? But the elephant in the room must be addressed. I see it. I know. I know what you're going to say. Well, this guy's going to South Carolina homer it up. No, okay? I don't do that. My Saturday affiliation means nothing in the grand scheme of my videos here on YouTube, and I feel the need to lay that out there because what I'm going to tell you is an honest opinion, and you can take that however you wish. Truly, you can take that however you want to, but I feel the need to lay those out there, especially when I do South Carolina and Michigan, because what you don't see are all the other pieces of merchandise that I have for specific teams. Like I got over here, Auburn, App State helmets. In my room, I got a bunch of different items of clothing. I have probably upwards of 20 schools that I have just gear for in general. And I wear them. I wear that when I have those teams on the show specifically for preview season. Because I don't want there to be a knowledge that I have, or a notion, really, not a knowledge, a notion that I have a bias towards anything. So I do this all as honest as I can, and certainly I'm higher on this team because I know a little more about this team, but that does not mean that I'm simply just blowing smoke for any team, or carrying water, as they say, for any team. It's just kind of the way it is. I know those are obviously going to be there, and that's fine. I don't mind it. But for the sake of honesty, that's kind of something I felt I needed to say as we get started. But with that said, let's go ahead and talk about South Carolina. In 2024, this is a team that went 9-4, 5-3. They lost the bowl game to Illinois. It was a heated bowl game. Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema going back and forth. But the season as a whole was really, really solid. I mean, this is a team that lost by 3 points to LSU. I was in attendance for that game. They lost on a missed field goal late, and you could argue they lost because Lenore Sellers got hurt. It doesn't really matter. You still got to win the game no matter who's on the field. So they lose by 3 to LSU at home on a missed field goal at the end of the game. You lose by 2 to Alabama. Had the ball in plus territory with a chance to win in Tuscaloosa. That's a big deal. And then you got blown out. You lost by 24 to Ole Miss. It really wasn't a close game, and there was never a point where it wasn't. You did it. You lost like that on your home field, which was probably the most concerning game of them all. I thought that was probably a turning point where things are okay. South Carolina's back to normal, going back downhill, and instead they rattled off. I can't even tell you. I have to think like 3 or 4 wins in a row. I think at the end of the year, I need to go and double check because no, it wasn't even that. It was 6 straight. This is a team that was 3-3. I forgot all about that. They then closed out with 6 straight. Got themselves in position to be a playoff conversationalist. And I don't know that they really deserved a playoff spot, but they were certainly the hottest team in college football at the time. And would they have won a playoff game or not? I don't know. I can't tell you the honest truth about that because we didn't see it. But what I can tell you is that this team felt like a playoff team last year, and especially as they figured things out. The defense was good. The offense started really working well when Lenore Sellers was healthy. And the rest kind of fell into place. when you look at this team in 2025, it's a little different. Quickly, before I go there, though, team allowed 18.1 points per game. This defense was much better than people will say it was last year. That was 12th in the country. They recruited 18th overall, and they portaled in the 15th class with 18 commitments. And so that leads us to this 2025 roster, this 2025 team. It does look different in the coaching staff. Shane Beamer remains the head coach. That's probably not changing, at least for the foreseeable future, unless he leaves. But Mike Shula takes over as the offensive coordinator. Now, Dwell Logans was there, left. He's now the head coach at Appalachian State. Mike Shula is going to fill in, and I really don't see a drop-off. I may actually see improvement from this offense. Hard to say. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know, because I don't, but I'm expecting an improvement offensively, specifically for the fact that they can run the ball a little better. Lenore Sellers, of course, is the man of this offense. He's a Heisman contender from the beginning. Returning starting quarterback, a lot of experience, and again, he is a Heisman contender. He's cemented himself, I think, in that conversation from the way he closed out last season and the way we're going to look at it again this year. At running back, it's interesting, though, because you have Oscar Attaway, who's returning, but then you have Russell Faison coming over from Utah State. But we're still, to this day, as of me recording this, July 14th, to this day, waiting on a ruling from the NCAA on whether Russell Faison could play or not. That determines the Carolina rushing offense a little bit. I think that Oscar Attaway's good, and I think he'll be just fine. But I really expect good things out of Faison. And if he's not on the field, then we kind of sit back and wonder, okay, who is the next man up? Who's going to take over this role and be the leading rusher on this team? Because the truthful answer is that I don't know. At wide receiver, you got 4 guys who are all returning from last year. Not all of them were technically starters, but they all played significant time last year. You got Mazio Bennett, who I think is going to be wide receiver 1. He came out and turned into a real star last year as a freshman. Jared Brown returns. He's going to be a guy that I think we're expecting a lot from again. Van Jacobs is going to be the guy as well, another really solid player out of the slot. And then you got Nick Harbor, who obviously is a blazing track star, speed that everybody's expecting him to be. But he started to really figure it out last year. In that 6-game winning streak, you kind of saw him start to put things together and be a wide receiver. You know, part of his development really was, okay, he's fast, yes, but being a better route runner, being able to catch the ball, being able to catch it specifically when there's players around him. And he struggled with that for a good portion of the year. But last year, I think we really saw those last 3-4 games, he started to pick things up and really, I think, not quite meet his potential, but start to realize that there is potential there to be a serious star player. He's also no longer doing the track thing over the summer. He's taken the full summer to train as a wide receiver. Last year, he had the offseason, and he was doing track things. He was doing the Olympic trials. This summer, it's not about that. This summer, it is all about being a wide receiver, being able to make the plays, and be a reliable target for Lenore Sellers. That alone, I think, is going to make a real big difference in how he progresses and how he plays in this 2025 season. When you look at tight end, it's a little interesting because it's no longer Josh Simon. He's off to the NFL. He's doing his own thing. He was great last year. But Michael Smith is going to step in, and then also Jordan Dingle comes over from Kentucky. I don't know which of these two is going to get more time. I kind of lean towards Jordan Dingle. I think he's a better receiving threat. But Michael Smith is going to be there. I think we're going to see a 2 tight end system and probably a handful of 2 tight end sets. This is a fun offensive look. The offensive line returns 2 starters, both the tackles. They bring in a couple, I think 1 transfer. I think the center is supposed to be a transfer, if I'm not mistaken. Boaz Stanley is the transfer. This team needs a little bit better from the offensive line, if we're being honest. They were ranked 57th both in run blocking and pass blocking grades. They just did not perform to standard last year, and I think that was part of the problem in some of these games that they lost. The Ole Miss game specifically. Ole Miss loaded up on the defensive line. I mean, they loaded up in general in the portal, but they loaded up on the D-line, and that's what dominated that game for them, was the fact that they were so strong up front. versus the Carolina O-line. When you look at the Alabama game, it really didn't play that much of a factor. When you look at the LSU game, it didn't really play that much of a factor until prior to injury. Once the injury happened to Lenoris, and you look at Robbie Ashford and what he was able to do, it just really wasn't all that great. Now, what I will say in all of this, and back up some of this, is when we talk about the running game, Lenore Sellers is going to be an active part of that running game. Why do I believe that's going to be the case? Is because they trust their backup this year. Aaron Nolan comes in from Ohio State, and he was one of the highest ranked quarterbacks in his class. The unfortunate thing is Ohio State brings in 4 different quarterbacks that are all the highest rated in their class in some regard. They got Lincoln Keenholz, Julian Sand, and then bring in Tavian St. Clair from Bellefontaine, Ohio. You know, those 3 are studs. St. Clair is probably the best, I think, potential-wise of all of them. Where does Aaron Nolan fit in? The answer was he didn't. So he's going to come down to South Carolina. He knows he's going to follow up Lenore Sellers. But should Sellers get hurt, Aaron Nolan has the opportunity to step in, and I think he will carry the same torch, I think, and be able to play very similarly to Sellers. Do I think he's as good? No, because he's not quite as polished, but there's certainly potential there. So when you talk about what this offense looks like, I think quarterback run is going to be a big part of it. I think Faison, should he be there, is going to be a big part of the run game. And then they got 4, really 5 receiving threats, maybe even 6, that can come out at any time and make a lot of plays. Offensive line play, the only question mark, I think it needs, I know that it needs to be better for this team to compete for the playoff. Moving on to the defense, Clayton White returns as defensive coordinator, and he called great last year. But the issue is now they lose a lot. You know, you lose guys like Debo Williams goes out. Nicky Manwari, stud that he was for 4 years, 5 years, I think, is now gone. You know, you have to figure out how you want to kind of do things with this team. They have 4 returning starters. They bring in a handful of transfers who are going to start. Brandon Cisse coming over from NC State. Justin Okoronkwo comes over from Alabama. Sean Murphy from Florida State, but also spent some time at Bama. And then Gabriel Brownlow Dindy coming over from Texas A&M. They made some strides in terms of like improving where they felt they were lacking, but they have a lot of players that are coming back too that are going to be serious ball players. Of course, Dylan Stewart comes back. He is the leader returning in sacks and tackles for loss and even forced fumbles. He had 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles last year. Dylan Stewart is everything I think that people cracked him up to be, and he had a lot of help from the fact that Kyle Kennard was on the other side, making a lot of plays. Now he's the focal point of offensive lines. He's the focal point of pass protection. How is he going to be able to make plays and still wreak havoc in the ball game? I think it's going to happen because he's a freak athlete, but how does he do it, and how much of an impact can he have on the game? The leading tackler returning is Jalen Kilgore. He's going to be back, and he also leads the team in returning interceptions with 5. Again, that was tied for 4th, I believe, in college football. This team produced 31 turnover opportunities, 14 interceptions. They forced 17 fumbles. They are ball hawking. They go after the football and make plays. That's not going to change. And, you know, when I look at this team, you know, I mentioned some of the returning guys, but there's a lot of guys I expect to be good too. Fred Johnson's a guy who I'm expecting to be good. Okoronkwo is going to play a good amount. You look at Brian Thomas, who's a senior defensive end. How much is he going to play? Or Desmond Umeozulu, how much is he going to play? I think that either of those guys on the other side of Dylan Stewart could be big time players. And then the secondary, you don't lose as much as you think. Obviously, you bring Cisse in, but you got Bakari Swain, Judge Collier, DQ Smith at safety. Like there's just a lot of players returning. There's still a lot of experience on the South Carolina defense. I don't quite see the fall off defensively that people are predicting. I certainly, prior to doing a little heavier research, was not certain how much it would be, but the more I look, the less I really buy into, oh, South Carolina is just going to fall off defensively. They may give up 20 points per game, but even 20 points per game is still really solid, especially if the offense works the way they should. When I wrote my thoughts about this team, I was pretty intentional. Nick Harbor finally came into his own at the end of the 2024 season, and how does he continue to progress, especially again having that full off season of football activity to develop? The defense lost a lot on the surface, as you would see it looking at it, but I don't think that they are going to have the fall off that people expect. Pretty much everything I just said is what my thoughts were. This team's schedule is not easy by any means. I mean, this is a team that's expected to win 7.5 games. That's their win total. 2,700 plus 2,700 odds to win the SEC and plus 5,500 to win a national championship, which is certainly better than they've had in recent years. But what can they do with this schedule? I mean, this stretch of LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, three of those 5 being on the road, and then you get Clemson to close the season out. Vanderbilt, we don't really know where they're going to be, but they're coming to Columbia. The Battle of Columbia, I think it's the Mayor's Cup, is what they call this game, between Carolina and Missouri. It's going to be interesting. And then you also start out with Virginia Tech, who, while I'm not high on them, I think that they could still pose a little bit of problems, especially for the defense. So what does South Carolina do? Let's go ahead and predict the schedule here. Start off with that Virginia Tech game, and I am giving them the win. I think that the Virginia Tech defense lost a lot last year. People were not really thrilled about their play, and they lose some of their key players to the portal or the NFL. The offense is interesting because I still have a lot of expectations for Kyron Drones and would like to see him live up to potential. But other than that, this Virginia Tech team really doesn't have a lot to love at the moment, especially in week 1. Taking South Carolina to get the win. Look at a win over South Carolina State to move on to 2-0 and get that home game against Vanderbilt. I've said this multiple times. I'm going to say it again. I'm not saying Vandy's going to be bad. I just think that they're going to be kind of figured out. They run this triple option style. I love what they did. The adjustment that Clark Lea made for this offense to run more of a triple option style, spread option attack, and utilizing Diego Pavia's athleticism, Cedric Alexander's athleticism, and then utilizing Eli Stowers in the pass game as a tight end. It's good. They've done some really good stuff. I just think it's a little bit more, there's more tape now on this offense. I think it's going to be a little bit more figured out. South Carolina is going to be the first team to really get a chance to see it, and I think they'll take care of business in that one. A road trip to Columbia, Missouri. I just think that at this point in the season, Missouri's offense is not quite going to be where they need to be. Their defense is going to be fine. I don't really doubt that one bit. And I think that's the first real test of the South Carolina offensive line is going to be in this game against Missouri. I'm still taking the win, though. I think South Carolina gets the job done, just being the more talented team at the moment. But it's going to be fun to watch. I think, again, the key matchup here is Missouri's D-line versus the South Carolina O-line. How do they progress through the season? And what do they look like in that first test? You get that game against Kentucky, I think that they'll make problems for Zach Calzada. I think that offensively they'll be in a good spot. They'll get the win. They'll be 5-0. Going on the road to face Garrett Nussmeier and LSU. This is a Heisman quarterback battle, or at least a Heisman contender battle early in the season. Well, not early, midpoint, I guess. And I think it's going to be a really fun football game. This thing being in Death Valley really kind of tilts the opinion. Last year, South Carolina should have won this game. This year, LSU, I think, is going to get the job done. They'll win this one. And I don't think they'll blow out South Carolina, but I certainly think they will kind of control the majority of this game. They come back home, face Oklahoma, and look, I like John Mateer. I think he's maybe a Heisman contender himself. I just don't like them enough on the road yet, and I think that South Carolina is going to be able to get the job done, get a good bounce back peak. Get a win over Oklahoma. They'll host Alabama the following week. And I think they're going to beat Alabama. This Alabama team, I'm just not loving. I don't know what the quarterback room is going to look like. I don't know exactly what their intentions are defensively either. Ryan Grubb coming back changes my opinion a little bit. I think they're going to be good, certainly. But is Alabama a playoff team? I mean, they weren't last year with, I would argue, a more talented roster. So what are they this year? The answer is I don't know. So I'm taking South Carolina to get the win there against Alabama. You get a road trip against Ole Miss. I think that losing this game the way they did last year, they're going to want to try to maybe go into Oxford and take care of business themselves. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Ole Miss will be the better team at this point. Really love Austin Simmons, and I think by November, he's going to have it figured out. So Ole Miss gets the win at home. South Carolina winning 2 of the last 3 against Texas A&M. I think they're going to go on the road this time. They have not got a win on the road against A&M until this year. I think they're going to beat Texas A&M. The biggest thing for me is just the offense. I think I trust more of South Carolina. And on top of that, I really don't know. I'm not going to say that because that I don't think what I was about to say is particularly true or something I fully agree with. But I do think that this team gets the job done over A&M. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a really fun game. But this is kind of a game of playoff wills at the time. I mean, these are 2 teams that are probably going to have 2 losses by this point. This is going to be a battle of 2 teams who want to have playoff aspirations, who want to be in the conversation still. I think a win here certainly cements South Carolina's chances. You get a win over Coastal Carolina, closing the season out at home against Clemson. Clemson has one of the best teams in college football, and it's really not particularly close in terms of their comparison. I think the Clemson defense, the defensive line, is going to be a serious problem for the South Carolina offensive line, and especially if it's not good to begin with. Lenore Sellers can make so many plays, but I think there's more of a focus on him this year. His athleticism can only get so far. I'm taking Clemson to get the win, just simply because I think that defensive line is going to be too much for the Carolina O-line, and it's really going to make it hard to run the ball, hard to throw the ball, hard to get anything going. And they may hold Clemson short too, but it's going to kind of be like last year, a defensive battle that, ultimately the team that makes the best play on defense can win it. So with that, 9-3, 6-2 in SEC play. I think 9-3, 6-2, given the wins and given where they lose, is playoff worthy. Will they make the playoff with that? It depends on what everybody else does, of course, but I mean, it certainly is not impossible. So let me know what you guys think. Of course, as always, always love the comments, always love the interaction down below. Let me know what you guys think. If I missed anything with the South Carolina team, please let me know. But for the most part, this team is, I think, as good as advertised. So people are kind of doubting what they're going to be. I think they're as good as people are saying they are. They may not be a playoff team. They may go 8-4, but it's a tough road to the playoff, really, for them. I mean, this is not easy by any stretch, and they'll just have to figure it out as the year goes on. It's a team that certainly has some question marks. Certainly has the potential to be worse, but I mean, I've seen 6-6 thrown up there. I don't really know that I buy that. I think the ceiling is probably 10 wins. The floor is, I'd say 7 or 8. I don't really see less than 7. If they do, there's something seriously wrong. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know your predictions down below. Always happy to have those conversations again in the comments if you're new around here. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Again, we're trying to get to 125 by the end of the month. Help us get there. That's awesome. And yeah, with that said, tomorrow, Georgia Tech. I'm excited to preview them. This team is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to get to it. So, again, I thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow with the Yellow Jackets.